Honourable Senators, thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today on C-5, Canada's new legislation aimed at reducing internal trade barriers and building critical projects of national interest. I'm joined by Bryan Detchou, who specializes in energy resources and environment policy at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. At the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, we represent our immediate members and the Chamber network with some 400 chambers and boards of trade across the country and our combined 200,000 members. We applaud the Prime Minister and the Government of Canada for moving so quickly and methodically on introducing C-5. This legislation aims to address internal trade barriers and to begin a conversation about building critical national infrastructure. This legislation is to address internal trade and infrastructure, but it is truly in response to one of the most important economic shocks of our generation. We really do live today in a different economic world, faced with increased risk on Canadian businesses and families. Before I go into that, though, I'd like to draw your attention to February the 4th, 2025, when our CEO, Candice Lang, announced the Canadian Chamber's All-In Plan. That plan featured 4 pillars: building critical resource infrastructure, reducing red tape and internal trade barriers, lowering taxes, and opening new markets for our goods and resources. Fast forward to today, C-5 responds to many of those issues we flagged last winter, and I'd be pleased to speak more to that as we get into the question and answer period. Now let's talk about energy security. Global energy demand is projected to rise by nearly 50% to 2050. Canada and its G7 partners must prepare for that now, ensuring affordability, reliability, and resistance of our systems. With geopolitical instability and fragile supply chains, energy policy has become a central issue of both economic and national security. At the Canadian Chamber, we held the B7 recently here in Ottawa, where business leaders affirmed what we already know. Canada has a pivotal role to play in shaping global energy and clean economic growth. This is a generational opportunity, but seizing it requires bold, coordinated, and immediate action. Unfortunately, Canada has lost momentum in recent decades. I ask you, could Canada have built the Trans-Canada Pipeline today? What about the hydroelectric dams in Quebec? What about the Trans-Canada Highway? Today, large-scale energy and infrastructure projects are routinely delayed by regulatory gridlock, rising costs, and political indecision. The consequences are real: weaker investor confidence, stalled productivity, and capital flowing to more agile jurisdictions. An above-all energy approach is essential. Leveraging our comparative strengths in conventional energy will allow us to drive clean investments, increase self-sufficiency, and deliver for Canadians and our global partners. We are encouraged by Bill C-5 and its potential to improve Canada's ability to deliver major projects. There are provisions of this bill that we believe could be clarified or improved. For now, we ask senators to consider the following recommendations, not only for this bill, but also for future legislation that will come before this House, before your committees, or introduced by your colleagues in the Chamber. Bill C-5 appropriately focuses on projects of national interest. However, we need a regulatory system that works efficiently for all infrastructure projects. Without broader reform, we risk a two-tiered process. Urgency cannot come at the expense of Indigenous rights, environmental considerations, or provincial jurisdiction. A credible framework must be grounded in trust and legal certainty. Undermining these principles risks delays, opposition, and legal challenges that defeat the very goal of what we're after. Finally, approvals are only part of the challenge. To truly unlock progress, governments must also tackle the old and new cumulative regulatory burden that is facing major energy and resource development projects. The greenwashing provisions, oil and gas emissions cap, and many other examples need to be looked at. Senators, let this be Canada's moment to rise, to seize our full potential and reaffirm our place as a global leader, securing a brighter, more prosperous future for all Canadians. Thank you.